you would still get a reflexive number of Trump voters who go,
It's not a drug test.
Right, no drug test, right? And,
or an IQ test. Or,
Right.
But and that I think that would absolutely detonate the Republican Party. I mean, we've been talking about this a lot, and some of the polling we're starting to see that's coming out. If Donald Trump goes third party, it could be, and look, one of the numbers we just saw was 40%. Now, I think that's high. Cut that number.
You saw a poll with Trump as a third party candidate getting 40%.
What's that?
It was a poll with Trump as a third party candidate getting 40%.
Yeah, 38.94%.
I didn't see that. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. But it would absolutely wreck the GOP. Even if it's only 10%, it wrecks the GOP. Hell, look, guys, think about how close some of these races were in places like Georgia, Wisconsin, Michigan, Minnesota. All these places where these races are razor thin margins.
Rick. Yeah, Rick, you're so cynical, though. I mean, you're saying that Trump wouldn't join with DeSantis, whoever defeated him, and hold his hands up, and been a gracious loser. I mean, I just can't believe that you don't think he'd unify the party for the good
I
of
think
the
he'd
nation.
launch an attack on the Florida Capitol.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that always strikes me when people talk about this, they never talk about policy. I mean, if you look at what the Forward Party says, they say, like, we'll figure this out. I mean, it seems so kind of fluffy, like, like a homeroom president kind of race. Like, you like me, therefore,
right.
We'll eat together at lunch.
It also
and
just
no policy agenda. Like, I want to run because here's 5 things I'm going to do. I just don't see. It's just me. That just speaks to how this is about style, not substance, and about kind of emotion, not brain.
I think so too. And look, I think a lot of people support a third party as an aesthetic choice.
Yes, that's a very good way.
They want to say, "Oh, this is so dirty on both sides. This third party thing is going to be great, and it's going to be clean and sunshine, and everybody's going to get along, and we're all going to do good things together." I mean, one of the problems with a third party, even if you won,
what would you do?
You're not going to purge the Republicans and the Democrats from the national political process. And believe me, the first goddamn thing they're going to do is put aside every difference they have to choke out the third party everywhere. I had a lesson in this when Evan McMullen was trying to run for president as an independent. We had a ballot line in Florida, and the Republicans in Rick Scott's office were like, "Oh, the fuck you do," and the Democrats were in the same thing. They were both like, no way. And so that reflex is going to be very powerful, even if the independent started to put some points on the board politically. That people don't understand how strong that the political gravity is on the two parties.
So look, what about the case? We got to talk about Perot here for a minute at least. What about the case? Perot at one time was leading.
Mm-hmm.
We forget in the spring, I think as late as May, Clinton was running third to Perot. Then that weird stuff happened and he got out, which during the Democratic convention,
right?
Which proved that God wanted.
When he was like, "Larry, these assassins came on my property trying to kill me."
Right. Yeah. There's proof that God wanted Bill Clinton to be president.
I don't get to do my Perot invitation very frequently, guys.
And then he gets back in, but he gets 19% and change.
Yep.
So are you guys of the opinion that Bush would have won without him?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
look, I wasn't on the campaign. I was inside the administration, but I was getting the briefings, and it was just like, he's just tearing us up with a lot of these. With a lot of these. I mean, and look, in a weird way, Perot was a preview of the largely bullshit, but not completely bullshit economic anxiety argument. And he was a preview of how globalization would change the political demographic in the country, where a lot of those folks who used to be reliable Republican voters kept thinking, well, you've had 5 tax cuts now. Why can't I get a better deal? Why is my job going overseas?
Right.
And NAFTA was that canary in the coal mine of Trumpism,
Yep.
and of this nationalist populism. And Perot was very articulate and had a sort of good narrative with those people of being like, I'm a rough and tumble asshole. I'm mean. I'm a dick. And you can trust me to be a dick to our enemies. And it was a sort of, and it was also I'm a CEO. I'm not a politician.
Right.
So it was. I think you can see a lot of the DNA of Trumpism inside that. I mean, and there's an argument to be made that Trump really formed a third
And he was
party
an
in the
angry
country.
candidate.
Yeah,
He was a candidate of anger.
Yeah.
Oh,
But I think like one of the things first of all, we're in I think a completely different situation now.
oh,
Right.
sure.
And that's part of, I think this like kind of old thinking about the third party, hey, this will be great, is just not dealing with reality of where we're at. And part of that is just the, again, going back to some of the focus groups that I've seen, the polarization and the fear on both sides of
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, I mean, it kind of like makes it impossible for another choice to appear because they're so
Yeah.
afraid of Trump. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
talking about if you're an independent, if you're a pro-democracy Republican and a Democrat, you're so afraid of the authoritarian movement that Trump and the MAGA crowd is moving that you're not going to entertain voting for somebody else. And I think the same thing is true in the opposite direction of the MAGA, Trumpism, white supremacy, all that. They're not going to, they so fear the multicultural diversity, all the things that DeSantis and Trump bang away on. They're
Right.
not going to move to so this like, oh yeah, both parties suck and people want to move to the middle. That does not exist right now in the polarized environment that we're living in.
Yeah.
And that all you can hope to do really is take a fraction, a 2 or 3 points, of purity. In other words, like the Ralph Nader voters who
Right.
would have stayed home or voted for Clinton, or whoever,
That's
whatever year that was.
That's the question with someone like Nader. How many of those people just wouldn't have voted?
Yeah.
And we'll never know that. There's no way of figuring that out.
It was
But
Gore.
look, there was a lot of talk at one time back after Liz Cheney lost her primary that Liz might run. So is there a scenario that if Liz ran, that she would take enough conservatives to hurt?
I want to think so, but honestly, I also fear because look, who were the biggest fans of who had strange new respect for Liz Cheney? It was Democrats. They were like, oh my God, this is a Republican.
She wasn't campaigning for any Republicans in November, and she was for Democrats.
This is a country. This is a person.
That's a very good point.
First, I can believe in them. I don't know the answer to that. I'd love to poll it and model it because if Liz Cheney could pull off a fraction of Republican voters, more power to it. But I'm not sure what the model really would end up being, guys. I just think the risk factors are so very high on this.
If you said, okay, you're going to have a third party candidate and it has to be somebody, I think Liz Cheney would be the one I would take the risk. I mean, as a Democrat, I would take that risk, right? I mean, can't she peel off 3 points of Republicans for 2 points of Democrat? Whatever she would. I agree with Rick. There might be, but she's so conservative that I think most Democrats, even though they admire her in that situation, I mean, admire what she did on the January 6th committee and
right.
people that stood up. I think they would welcome her entry as a third party candidate as more of that, and not vote for her. But I'm not sure whether could she get a vote on the Republican side. I mean, look at what happened to her in Wyoming.
I
And
mean,
like I said, this is with
I think
somebody who respects her for what she's done.
right. I mean, I think it's like any race. It would depend on what her message was. So, I mean,
True.
what would her message be? It's not going to be,
Well,
I'm
this
going
is
to be
the,
president, because then, I mean, she's not a crazy person.
right, and
Um,
this is this. But Stuart, that's the whole point. Like, if
yeah,
she starts to say, "I'm running to save our democracy," okay, and
yeah,
4 points of Republicans move and vote for her, those 4 points were likely, if she's not in the race, because they're
yeah. They're
pro
part of the
democracy,
percentage
they
of the
want that
white vote
message
that
to either
Biden
vote
has to
for
get.
Biden or go home or
Yeah,
stay home. So
Right.
this is why even the person I said, "Hey, have you made me?" I'd say, "Okay, I'd take the risk." She's dangerous too.
I just think, and look, like I said, I think it is. I think it is the sport of people who want to make an aesthetic choice, and I also
I
think there are a
love
lot of
that.
political
Yeah,
dilettantes in the space. Like nobody who, folks like us who've been to this rodeo and who understand how presidential campaigns work and understand how voter behavior works. All of us see all of the immediate, glaring, obvious problems with a third party candidate. It's the people that haven't been to the rodeo who think, oh my gosh, this is going to be like everybody gets a free kitten. It's going to be so nice. Everybody will be so happy. And it doesn't have the same, it doesn't have the same oomph of warning and danger and like the hairs on the back of your neck stand up to people
yeah,
who have not been serious people in campaigns.
Right.
yeah. It's like the boys are going to be home by Christmas. This will be a quick war.
Right. Yeah.
You know, don't. Yeah, well,
Well,
Yeah.
and I
we're going to
also
go
think,
in
guys, I also
and
think
kick
there is a there's an intellectual class bubble around the independent movement too, of
100%.
people who really think um, that the solution to the problems of the Republican Party is to have a center right independent party when there just isn't in the current in the current Republican space, there's not enough available bandwidth to pull people into a viable third political party. You really have to fish from both ponds, but unfortunately, you fish from the Democratic pond to a degree that you empower the more coherent, cohesive, and determined and hierarchical Republicans to eat up everybody at that
Yep.
point.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you just look at the demographics, what is that Republican Biden vote going to be? It's going to be overwhelmingly college educated. It's going to
It's
be
the
overwhelmingly
Lincoln
white.
target list.
Yeah. And those are the people that Liz would appeal to,
Mm-hmm.
and it would be, yeah, I just go back to this concept that it seems irresponsible that if you really believe that this country's in a crisis such that you're involved in this and you're out there and you're trying to do good, how is it that you can come to this as your solution? I mean, look, you and I spent years pointing out flaws in the Democratic Party, but
Sure.
we can bite that bullet and support the Democratic Party
Yeah.
because that's the best thing for the country.
Right. It's a
So,
choice. It's an existential choice for the country
yeah,
because the third option is not a real thing. It's a fantasy. It's a
Right.
contrivance.
yeah. All right, guys. I wish we could like put this on like some kind of sound truck and drive around. Because
Well, I'm
it
not going to
just,
stop bitching about this, and
Yeah.
you
yeah,
know,
It's reckless as all get out. It
it
just
really is
is.
yeah. I
dangerous.
mean, that's what it seems like. It seems like it really is reckless.
One of the folks had a question just now, and it was how
Yeah,
many ballots can you get on in the states? Look, if you're a qualified third party in a state, you can run for any elected office, state or federal, if you're a qualified third party. However, getting on the ballot is the high hill. Some states are super easy, like Utah. Some states require you to do things that are so gymnastic, it's ridiculous. Like some states require you to go and get a certain number of petitions in each House
CD.
state legislative district
Yeah,
or a certain number of petitions in
Hmm.
each congressional district. And they put all these various conditions and requirements. Realistically, if you threw $1 billion at me tomorrow, we could probably get on the ballot in 15 states, maybe, but it's a lot of work. And at every point, it can be legally challenged. At every point, you could see that investment in those states go poof. But it would require it's at
And
a scale that civilians do not even begin to understand.
Yeah.
It is
So
so damn hard.
Liz is asking, what's the best thing you could do to stop this?
Luckily, inertia will stop most of it. However, it's important to make sure that people don't live in a fantasy world about what the
Right.
election 24 means and what it's going to look like. So people go, oh, I'd rather have a third party. You should just say to them, so you want Trump?
Yeah.
Because third party is Donald Trump. The third party is Donald Trump. The third party candidate will elect Donald Trump.
Yep.
And I think it's important that people understand that, because that is, look, explaining how a third party gets on the ballot and works in every state is super complicated. Getting to the X, getting to the emotional center of the real result of a third party, Donald Trump's reelection, I think that's the way you do it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, look, picture a MAGA rally for Trump, and how do you get 5 to 10% of those people to vote for a third-party candidate? Because that's what you would need to do for it not to be a straight guarantee that Trump's going to win. And
Yep.
You can't do it.
You can't.
No.
You really can't. I mean, I just think we're going to see a lot of silliness in the next few months. I mean, today's silliness was Nikki Haley, which, Stuart, you wrote a absolute heartbreaker, beautiful piece in the New York Times about it. And I think the reaction of Nikki Haley today was exactly what I thought, but, sort of a wet fart in a hot church. And, I think, but we're going to see a lot of silliness. We're going to see a lot of this third party stuff bubbling up in the next few weeks and months. And it's important to just keep smashing it back down, because we're not there.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for doing it. I hope
thanks, everybody.
Gets out there. Next week, big week.
Ukraine.
Yeah. I mean, I wake up every day glad that Joe Biden is president. And what I just find so incredible is Republicans have put a woman who is a pro-Putin Russian asset, basically, as the second most important person in the House of Representatives of one of the two superpowers in the world, or maybe the only superpower now. And how does it happen? We have to do another whole show on this. How does it happen that the party that we work in, Rick, that the one thing you could count on, besides being against taxes,
national security,
and is being against, strong on dictators, strong on Russia, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Yep.
How is it that the pro-Putin element of American politics is in our old party? It's another show, but it absolutely blows my mind.
Every damn
blows
day.
Your mind. I mean, come on.
But I was going to say, there is a cause and effect. Russians backed Trump. That's indisputable. Trump won.
No question.
And what do you have now? You wouldn't have Marjorie Taylor Greene without Trump.
Yeah.
No question.
So, I mean, it's got to be the most successful foreign intelligence operation in history.
Bar none.
It has to be.
Bar none.
So anyway, another show. But thanks, everybody, for joining us. Follow on Resolute Square. Rick, how do we find you on Twitter?
I am at the Rick Wilson on Twitter, and the Enemies List podcast here on Resolute Square. You can find it where all fine podcasts are found.
Yes, I am the only person on this screen who doesn't have a podcast. Because why need it when you can listen to Joe's and Rick's? But the Enemies List is just killing it.
It is.
Already 30 episodes, and it's got a huge audience.
I want to thank everybody. We hit our millionth download this week. I want to really thank everybody.
Wow.
That's great, man.
3 months, 1 million downloads.
Must listen.
Just honored.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I'm so thrilled with the response.
And Joe, how do we find you out there in the world?
At Joe Trippi on Twitter, and That Trippi Show is the podcast. Again, at Resolute Square, you can find it there or anywhere you get your favorite podcasts.
All right, guys, thanks. Support Resolute Square. I mean, we really are the only, it's astounding, but really are the only single issue pro-democracy media platform out there.
Yep.
And we've got to step up and support what we say, and this is growing, and thanks to your support, it is. So with that, say goodbye to everybody, and keep reading us, keep sending us comments, and look forward to seeing you next time.
Good night, folks.
Good night, everybody.